back, everyone. Wanted to share this great shot from Chopper 2 earlier tonight. A full moon this evening. It's called the Beaver Moon, and it's the start of a lunar eclipse that is caused when the moon passes into the Earth's shadow. Now, if you want to watch, this eclipse starts around 1 a.m. technically this morning, but tonight, so
tomorrow morning.
Turn on your alarm clocks and and take a glimpse if you can, if it's a clear night for you.
I think
but
that
gorgeous,
was
right?
Worth the price of admission right there.
Definitely.
Spectacular.
The main part of the Earth's shadow will be roughly three and a half hours.
That would make it the longest eclipse in more than 500 years, according to planetary scientist John Keller, and there won't be another one that long for at least 500 more. That's because this eclipse will happen when the moon is almost at its farthest distance from the Earth, the opposite of a supermoon.
When the moon is farthest from the Earth, it travels slower. When it's closer to the Earth, it travels faster. So it's actually moving through the sky at an ever so slightly slower rate.
That gives you more time to catch a glimpse, but you better set an alarm.
This is the orientation at about 12:50 tonight.
Keller says you'll start to see the eclipse a little after midnight. It reaches totality at about 2 a.m. and it's over around 3:45. Cloud cover is unfortunately headed our way. There's a 70% chance for tonight's display to get eclipsed by high clouds.
There could be clouds, but with for an eclipse, if you see it for 2 minutes, you've seen a lot.
If you do catch a clear window, there will be more stellar views to go along with the eclipse.
If you look to the upper right, you'll notice the Seven Sisters, known as the Pleiades, and also in Colorado known as Subaru.
But if the clouds do conceal this cosmic event, Keller, who is also the director of the Fisk Planetarium at CU Boulder, gives us a perspective that has yet to be seen by mankind, an eclipse viewed from the moon.
And we've shown the exact perspective of the moon moving into totality. What people on the moon would see a solar eclipse where the Earth is blocking the sun.
Meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen, 9 News.
So it's going to last for a while, and it's pretty much free.
Free?
Pretty much. CU Boulder will be having a public viewing tonight from 10:30 to 2:30. That'll be at the observatory right next door to Fisk Planetarium. Of course, they say, like you deal with, if it's cloudy, their view through the telescopes will be as obstructed as anyone else's. So hopefully
But otherwise, that's a good place to go.
The Belgian capital, Brussels, was today the latest European city to see unrest over tightened coronavirus restrictions. Tens of thousands of people marched in protest, some threw fireworks at police officers who intervened with tear gas and water cannon. Belgium has just brought in new measures in the face of a sharp rise in infections. The protesters are mainly opposed to the use of COVID passes, which ban the unvaccinated from entering bars and restaurants. Protests have also taken place in Austria, Italy and Croatia. And in the Netherlands, there is now a third night of unrest. Our Europe correspondent Anna Holligan has this report from The Hague.
Another day of unrest, unsettling another European capital. This is Brussels tonight. What began as an organised peaceful march quickly turned nasty. Some protesters threw fireworks at police. Others targeted their vehicles. Officers intervened with tear gas and water cannon. Belgium has just brought in new rules in response to a sharp rise in infections. Demonstrators are mainly angry about the use of COVID passes, which stops the unvaccinated from entering venues such as restaurants or bars. Some object to plans to make vaccinations mandatory for health workers.
We know that the virus is there, but we leave it to people to decide whether or not to be vaccinated.
I came to give my opinion about freedom of expression and individual choice, and really to be able to respect everyone's choices.
The Netherlands witnessed the most extreme violence this weekend. Rotterdam was rocked by rioters. Police opened fire, shooting at the crowd with live rounds in response to what they described as a life-threatening situation. Vandals torched bicycles in The Hague. The Justice Minister believes organised criminals may be behind this.
These are not demonstrations, these are attacks on police and firefighters. More than 50 arrests have been made and many more will follow.
These startling demos happening too in Austria, Croatia and Denmark reflect rumbling frustrations about the evolving COVID restrictions, considered essential to bring down record high infection rates. And yet here, the Netherlands' top virologist has warned the rules introduced last weekend aren't yet having any impact on the number of new cases, which will raise concerns in countries across the continent dealing with competing visions on how best to emerge from this worse than expected fourth wave of the coronavirus.
Scientists in the United States say they are a step closer to reversing paralysis in humans after they successfully administered a new injectable therapy in mice. The drug was injected into their spinal cords and the mice learned to walk again within 4 weeks. The injection encouraged molecules in the spinal cord to dance, promoting nerve regeneration. The team hopes to begin patient trials within 2 years, Mark Lobel reports.
Spot the difference. This is a mouse before treatment and after. Walking again.
Over the period of about 3 to 4 weeks, we were able to observe that an initially paralyzed mouse, as a result of severe spinal cord injury, regained great ability to walk.
So how did scientists do it? A treatment packed with hundreds of thousands of molecules was injected in the tissue around the spinal cord to repair cells. Crucially, this watery therapy kept everything moving.
We discovered that the motion of the molecules inside this filament is critical in their ability to signal cells in the spinal cord in order to initiate repair.
To trigger the experiment, an incision was made in the mammal's spine. That's to replicate what happens to humans after they suffer a car crash, sports injury, gunshot wound, or from a disease. It's hoped human trials could be approved next year.
This therapy is also going to affect other targets that are related to the central nervous system, for example, the brain. So we hope to be able later to use it also for stroke treatments and for neurodegenerative diseases.
For now, though, this exciting discovery, a unique assembly of many molecules, may soon offer hope to hundreds of thousands of people living with spinal injuries with a simple injection in the back, if human testing stands up to scrutiny too. Mark Lobel, BBC News.
The head of the World Food Programme has condemned the international community for not stepping in to avert a potentially devastating famine in Afghanistan. The organisation is warning that around the world, 45 million people are now on the edge of starvation in 43 countries. They say in Afghanistan, millions will die within weeks if the international community doesn't help. David Beasley has described the next 6 months as potentially hell on earth for the country.
It is as bad as you possibly can imagine. In fact, we're now looking at the worst humanitarian crisis on earth. 95% of the people don't have enough food, and now we're looking at 23 million people marching towards starvation. Out of that, almost 9 million are knocking on famine's door. The winter months are coming. We're coming out of a drought. The next 6 months are going to be catastrophic.
Well, our World Affairs editor John Simpson is currently in Bamiyan in central Afghanistan and gave me an update on how desperate the situation is on the ground.
Well, it's getting bad, and what the World Food Programme people and David Beasley and others are trying to do is to attract the world's attention not to a disaster that's underway, but the disaster that could happen really within a matter of weeks. So that here I am in Bamiyan, which is one of the main centers of hunger. It's also, of course, the place where the Taliban 20 years ago blew up the 6th century figures of the Buddha. But you wouldn't really get much sense that there was hunger right now, because the shops have got a lot of food, particularly fruit, which has been grown over the past few months. but there has been a serious drought here and in other parts of Afghanistan, and that's causing all sorts of problems. I went to see just this morning a widow who's got 7 children. She lives virtually in a hut just up the mountain, almost beside the Buddha, and her children are aged from about 16 down to about 3. Her husband died some months ago. She is absolutely on her last legs in terms of knowing how she's going to feed the children. It's extraordinarily moving to speak to her. I have to tell you, it was difficult to listen to her without tears running down your face. But she, like millions of people in this country, can just get by at the moment